Hey everybody, Steve here, and today we're doing something a little bit different because I got involved in a discussion where a security guard shot and killed a man, and I don't have any experience, either military, law enforcement, or security. I don't know what I'm talking about. 20 years in the military, worked security, did MP stuff, did field patrol in Korea in the 80s and 90s, which is fraught with drunk GIs and drunk Korean nationals and fights between the two, and then fights with the GIs and the people who are doing field patrol as MPs. And then I was a concealed carry firearms instructor. I was also an instructor, a part of a contract team that taught military police at Fort Carson. There was about 800 students that we had over that period of time. And in that, not only did we do firearms manipulation, safe handling, shoot, move, and communicate, but we also talked about Colorado law in regards to self-defense, security, and law enforcement, because military police have a huge, a wide range of duties that includes law enforcement on base, and you need to know the Colorado laws because Fort Carson is within Colorado. As a concealed firearms instructor, I would go to great lengths to teach on Colorado law, and I actually worked for a senior prosecutor, forensic prosecutor, or forensic analyst, I should say, who did tons of trials. And so he got me really, the guy's name was Paul Paradis, and he's the guy that really got me into law. And during his classes that I would teach for him, it was a great time. We had a lawyer that would come in the class, and it would be like 4 to 6 hours worth of legal training from a actual defense attorney who is experienced and knows Colorado law when it comes to security as civilians, security as security personnel, and so on and so forth. And in the end, you really got to be on your P's and Q's. You have to cross the T's, dot the I's when it comes to Colorado law, because you can do everything right, but if it's against the law, you can get screwed. Now, where is all this going? This is very interesting. And again, there was a video of this guy, a security guard who worked at Lowe's in Portland, Oregon, where the security guard fatally shot a man during a confrontation. And I mentioned my 2 cents, having military experience of over 20 some odd years, with 12 years being overseas, working law enforcement for 11 years, also working security, concealed carry firearms, being a contract instructor for the U.S. military at Fort Carson, and a number of other things. Oh, and I also had my Krav Maga certification, and I helped teach combatives. It's just worked in prisons, 2 medium R prisons, and I did a stint at the Max, the Super Max in Colorado, which is someplace I would never want to work again because that's where the worst of the worst go. But with that, every single year was nothing but training on the legalities of being a guard or being a security or being, the aspects of self-defense or use of force continuum. So basically, you have levels of force where you have like officer presence and then verbal warnings, and it all goes all the way up to lethal force engagements. When it comes to law enforcement and even civilians, when it comes to self-defense, you're taught, or should be taught, because at least in regards to Colorado law, that you can only respond with the level of force if you feel or you perceive that you're in danger of serious bodily injury or lethal force itself, or the same against others, and then you could defend yourself and others. When it comes to security, you can do that as well, but with security companies, you have unarmed and then you have armed security. Unarmed security, in my opinion, from what I've seen, I worked for G4S, which is the largest security company in the world, and unfortunately, they scrape the bottom of the barrel for security officers. And I just have to say that. It's great people, but they just don't have a lot of experience. The training that they get is minimal. And again, everything is to put a body into place to say, hey, we have security here, and that is a crime deterrent, is just having an officer on the scene. So with that being said, let's play this video. And what we're going to end up doing is we'll show you this video, and We'll play it in its entirety, and then I'll tell you what I ended up saying, and then how some wackadoos contacted me and said that my experience in the military or law enforcement or security or as a CCW, I have no experience. No experience. So here's what we're going to end up doing. So we're going to start off. The background of this, as we'll see in the video, is that these people in this vehicle were supposedly trespassed from this Lowe's home improvement store in Portland, Oregon. The guy with the body cam is security guard, and they didn't steal anything, they didn't hurt anybody, but they're supposedly been trespassed, so he's telling them to get off the property. They're going into the vehicle, and this is where the craziness ensues. What I want you to pay attention to is the demeanor of the security guard and how emotional he gets and the lack of professionalism that we see. So here we go.
You know you've been trespassed. You know you're not supposed to be here.
Okay. Seems that we got a firearm.
You refusing to leave my property?
Oh, you fucking asshole! Oh,
Like pepper spray or taser or something.
what?
There's a security vehicle.
Fucking asshole!
I told you to leave property!
Get the fuck out of here!
I told you to leave property! You've been trespassed and warned multiple times!
I call the police.
Notice how he has escalated the situation. And truck goes forward, tries to go right.
Get the fuck out the vehicle now!
He draws his firearm.
You already tried to hit me once! You move this vehicle again, I will fire!
So apparently, ooh,
I told you to stop and do not angle the vehicle at me! Call the authorities now!
Oh, God! Help me!
I told you not to move the vehicle! I told you!
You call 911 right now! Oh, my God! You fucking ass! Oh, my God!
You already tried to hit me in the vehicle once! And that is assault! You also used pepper spray! You've been trespassed from the property multiple times!
Freddie! Freddie! It's Freddie! Oh! Oh! Oh my God!
there is no reason for this to happen.
The security guard just shot my husband! Oh!
This is totally uncalled for. As either as law enforcement or a civilian, or especially as a security guard.
Oh my God, you killed him, you asshole!
I told you! He tried to hit me!
Why'd you shoot him?
Because he tried to hit me with a vehicle! That is assault with a deadly weapon!
You called 911! You killed my husband! Oh! Oh!
Are you on the authorities with him right now?
I'm on 911 right now.
Told him that he's been trespassed
I
multiple
watched you. I watched you.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
watched
he
you.
doesn't
Yes,
call
he's shot.
security,
Yes,
somebody else
definitely. I see
does.
blood. Yes.
He's bleeding out.
And
Do they want me to render aid? I don't know what to do at this
We
point.
want security to render aid. We want
here he says he doesn't know whether he's supposed to render aid. The security classes and that I went through when I worked security, you were taught that you need to render aid if something happens to whether it is customers of the client or even to perpetrators if they end up getting hurt. You have a duty to care in many states. But he says he doesn't know what to do.
medical. What do you want him to do?
I'm right here standing by. My camera's on. Everything's been recorded.
Yeah, this ends up just being a shit show. And to be honest with you, in this video that was on social media, I left my 2 cents of saying, hey, the security guard was absolutely wrong because, one, being trespassed is usually a misdemeanor in most states. If you violate a trespass order, it can be another misdemeanor. Some states escalate it from a misdemeanor to a felony offense. But again, when it comes to security guards, they don't have the power to enforce that stuff. They can't physically put hands on people to get them off the property. Their job is to observe and report. Now, I'm taking this from the point of Colorado law because I worked in Colorado and Pueblo and Denver and Springs and so on and so forth. So from that point of view, yeah, you're supposed to call law enforcement. Law enforcement comes because they can verify whether that trespass order was actually issued. And just because someone files a trespass order doesn't mean that it was actually done. So again, people make mistakes, paperwork gets dropped down the hole, the file 13 drawer, mistakes happen. So at this point, we don't know 100% of whether these people actually got physically trespassed by law enforcement. It is possible, but we don't know if it's been enacted. Everything about this is wrong because there's a lack of professionalism, there's a lack of understanding the duties and the responsibilities of the security guard. If it ends up that somebody has been trespassed, and if I was a security guard there, and first of all, yeah, it's clear that he pushed it to a lethal force engagement. Since the people were not engaged in theft or damage to the client's property, wasn't harming any of the customers of the client, wasn't damaging property, wasn't hurting anybody, didn't hurt anybody, but they were just violating a trespass order as a security guard, all I would have to do is have my body cam on and say, hey, excuse me, my name's so-and-so, I'm with so-and-so security, I work for, Lowe's, and I'm the security guard here. It is my understanding that you have been served a trespass order by law enforcement. My client has said that they don't want you onto the property, so please leave the property. If they don't leave and they're not hurting anybody, guess what? I'm not going to put my hands on them. There's no reason to. And there's no reason to escalate the situation. The emotional escalation of which we see in this goes from 1 to 100 real fast. So if it was me, it would be, hey, I get it. I understand. Here's the deal. They don't want you on the property. I have nothing against you. I'm just doing my job. But, if you don't leave, I'm going to have to call law enforcement because that's what my job requires. That's what my client requires. And, I'm just giving you a chance to leave. If you don't want to leave, I'm going to call law enforcement and then you can deal with them. So no hard feelings, but that's where we're at. And then what I would do as a security guard would sit back, have my body cam on, have their license plate. Obviously, you have the evidence that if a trespass order has been filed against them, that now you have evidence and proof that they broke that trespass order. So now when law enforcement comes up, all you have to do is say, hey, I observed these people, blah, blah, blah. Supposedly they had a trespass order. Police or law enforcement would verify that, and then your evidence of your body cam would show that they violated that trespass order, and then law enforcement would arrest them and issue either another misdemeanor, higher level misdemeanor, or issue it as a felony, as some states do. And then they would escort those people off. That's it. Observe and report. There was no reason for this guy, especially if these people weren't harming anybody or damaging any property, which doesn't seem to be the case. So the security guard was totally in the wrong, and the way that I see it, and with my years of experience, I didn't get that warm fuzzy down below that this was all legit. And I voiced my two concerns in regards to force continuum, use of force, how he escalated the situation, telling them to leave, they're getting in the vehicle. That kind of tells me that they're trying to leave, and you're standing in front of the vehicle, not letting them leave. There is that aspect of now you're trapping people in and you're not letting them leave. So it's kind of like, I told you to leave, but now I'm standing in front of your truck and you can't leave. Escalated the situation. He just should have sat back and said, hey, I'm going to call this in. You got a few minutes before law enforcement gets here. It is what it is. I'm sorry, but, I have to call this in. He could have went that route. But anyway, what he ends up doing is not that. And it goes from a non-lethal force engagement from observe and report to lethal force, and where he kills people. Let's take a look at what we end up here. And remember when I said that I didn't have that warm fuzzy? The guard hired to protect Portland business wasn't firearm certified when he killed the man. This is huge. So for the people that don't know this, Yeah, when you work for a security company, you are hired for a specific position, either armed or unarmed. And if you're armed, you have to usually have a CCW license. You have to go through some additional training with the security company to know that you can qualify the weapon, that you know how to safely operate the weapon. And then there's additional blocks of instruction in regards to security and when you can use that weapon. And then, of course, the escalation of force and force continuum, which is obviously, this is a classic example of what not to do. Here it is. Armed security, fatally shot Freddie Nelson Jr., 49, 4 times through the windshield as he sat in the Plaza's parking lot. And 28-year-old Logan Gimbel was one of the last, at least 3 guards working Cornerstone Security Group that states it only provides armed security who did not have a license to carry a gun while on the job. Sounds like this is a pretty shady security company, because if you only provide armed security and you don't have a license to carry a gun, that means you should be working for that security company. Unfortunately, there's a lot of security companies on the lower end that will get contracts from, big stores like Lowe's and Walmart's and so on and so forth. And they sneak in there because they're the lowest bidder and that company gets the job. And so they kind of bend the rules. Well, apparently the company can be held liable because they didn't ensure that this person had a license. He was supposed to have a license and he didn't. So, and again, if you don't have a license, that should be one of the main things you check if you're working at an only armed security services company. Said the bullets pierced Nelson's head, heart, and both his lungs. And detectives and victim advocate, you killed my husband, the city is plagued. Okay, so it talks about asked the armed guards to bring to order the crowd, blah. Nelson's family, they just shouldn't have guns. Especially if the guys there already have problems there. It was a time bomb waiting to happen. Talks about that the guy, Nelson, was a natural entrepreneur. He owned a real estate company in Colorado, used furniture store in Wyoming. He's a familiar face. Lowe's employees knew him on a first-name basis and let him collect old pallets from behind the store, which he sold to companies that wanted the wood. Every so often, Nelson would stop by next door with bags of empties. He lived less than 2 minutes away. He drove over. It remains unclear why Gimbel approached the couple in the parking lot. See, I told you there was something screwy going on. And I'm just reading this for the first time. I searched for this and saw the initial title and said, yeah, let's just run with it. 2 current Cornerstone guards who requested anonymity to speak about their employer said Nelson was well known within the company. They believe Gimbel approached the car because Nelson had been trespassed from Delta Park for dealing drugs on the property, meaning he was on a list of people banned from the center. One of the guards believed there had been reports of domestic disturbance. OPD, Oregon Police Department, could not independently confirm either of these statements by the guards. Court records show Nelson filed a restraining order against her husband, served on him. She filed an order, felony burglary charge, 4th-degree assault against his wife. Ordered Nelson to not contact his wife. The order expires. The charges were dismissed in 2020. He had other run-ins with law enforcement, including misdemeanor assault and menacing charges. Now, what some people will take this as is, well, he wasn't a nice guy, so he got what he deserved. That's not how the law works. The law works on case-by-case basis. So because he was a knucklehead in the past does not mean that he does not get to, be afforded the opportunity to not be killed in a situation that didn't warrant a lethal force engagement. Sunny Sunball, I just saw this popped up on my screen, says, I was certified in Oregon. From what I'm seeing, you're 100% correct. That's a really bad shoot. Yeah, that is a really, really bad shoot. Yeah, absolutely crazy. So, city officials declined to release the recordings of the 911 calls to the ongoing investigation. He said the armed guard approached the couple in the parking lot that night and told Freddie to put his hands behind his back. DeMore said Nelson had a strained relationship with the security guards who allegedly followed him when he was on the property. He reportedly refused the order, instead getting inside his truck. According to DeMore, Gimbel struck his arm in a rolled-down window, stuck his arm in the rolled-down back window of the vehicle and pepper sprayed the couple. Yeah, there's no reason, if you have a trespass order, it's not the security guard job to detain you or cuff you up for a misdemeanor violation, especially if you're not in damaging property, hurting other people, so on and so forth. Again, it should be observe and report. Gimbel then reportedly moved in front of the vehicle and fired 4 shots, and that was it. Now, we did see the vehicle lunge forward, which can be construed as a lethal force engagement, because with a vehicle coming toward you, you were in fear of severe bodily injury or death. But the thing is, Gimbel was not mature and civil enough and didn't follow his duties and responsibilities as a security guard to observe and report and just let law enforcement deal with it. This would have been a non-issue if Gimbel had just said, hey, you got to leave the property. You have a trespass according to the information I have. The client doesn't want you here, so you have to leave. If you don't leave, I got to call law enforcement. I'm sorry, but this is just the way it is. And then just continue to observe to make sure that they don't damage property, hurt anybody, so on and so forth. Again, with his body cam, he would have, that is the ultimate weapon that he has against these people. The last thing he ever should have done is draw his firearm and escalate the situation to where he had to draw his firearm. So anyway, according to the records, Gimbel took the train to work as an armed guard around the time he started at Cornerstone, but the state never received his application to be licensed to work with a gun. So now the security company is now liable because they did not ensure that their employee that they hired could be licensed to work with a gun. We don't even know if Gimbel is able to have a gun legally. It's interesting on some of this. It says, according to notes kept on the shooting, one of the owners of Cornerstone told the agency that Gimbel had prior issues with the victim and acted in self-defense, firing the 4 shots. Acted as though he was going to run Gimbel over with his car. The problem is he escalated the situation to the point of where he basically had these people entrapped. He's standing in front of the truck, telling them to leave. They're getting in the vehicle and they're trying to leave, but he's not letting them leave. But he's yelling at them, "I told you to leave," and then he can't leave. So yeah, we see emotions are running high with this, and it's just absolutely insane. As far as I could tell, 2 eyewitnesses, when the guy was shot through his windshield, the car had not moved out of the parking spot, who estimated he was about 10 to 15 car lengths away from the shooting. The car was not outside the parking spot. He wasn't trying to go anywhere. He was just trying to tell the officer, hey, I'm going to leave. Now, we did see in the video where the vehicle did move to the right as he tried to pull out, but the security vehicle was there. Then he comes back, and it seems like he tried to go left. But it also seems like the security guard impeded the way of the vehicle. So instead of being a responsible adult and saying, hey, there's a large 2,000 plus pound vehicle, I'm going to move out of the way, which this never should have happened to begin with. This is just a series of bad decisions, one after another. Let's see. Multiple shots. He was a security patrol car blocking from leaving, blah, blah, blah. We talked about that. It was a matter of time. Warning signs that Cornerstone guards and bottle drop patrons could be a combustible mix appeared early. Jules Bailey, a chief stewardship officer at Oregon Brewing Recycling Cooperative, which states the bottle drop location, sounded alarm bells before the guards even arrived. Bailey protested the proposal for armed guards, predicting an unintentional violent confrontation in an email sent to the head of whatever. Sturgeon confronted the guards, who she had already contracted with to patrol the plaza, were necessary to tame crowds that had grown during the pandemic while many grocery stores closed their bottle return centers to health concerns. Could decline to talk, blah, blah, blah. So, two former Cornerstone guards who spoke on anonymity said it was hardly a secret that some armed security was performed by guards who are not certified to carry a gun. If there's one, there's more. And if there's more, then that means, yeah, it's not a good company. To find out if a guard is properly licensed to carry a gun, they said a manager would simply need to plug the name into the state database. The two guards said Cornerstone took lax approach to certification. They basically say, you're a big boy, saying we trust you enough to do it yourself and not hassle you down. As an employee who quit this spring because he felt the supervisor was behaving inappropriately towards lower level employees. He says, I don't know how I guess, whatever that is, law enforcement hadn't caught on yet. Gimbel told the state that his application for a license to carry a gun got lost in the mail and he forgot to follow up. According to the agency's case file, a regulator responded that it was Gimbel's responsibility to make sure the application was processed. Gimbel voluntarily surrendered his security guard license 3 weeks after the shooting. It seems like a failure on both our part. Mine for failing to check the status and yours for failing to notify members that the forms sent the as end of 2020 could be as of. Gimbel told the state in a handwritten note proposed giving up his license. Have a nice day. So anyway, yeah, it's just very, very problematic on what we end up seeing here. And then, sentenced to life in prison. What are the odds? So we're going to take a look at this here.
The pain and sadness to Logan Gimbel, the man who pulled the trigger.
He took my best friend and partner of over 30 years. He took the father of our 3 children and our grandson's grandpa, or papa.
Multnomah County Prosecutor Amanda Nadell read a statement from Nelson's wife, Carly. She wrote how she will never be the same after May 29th, 2021.
I pray that someday I can have a forgiving heart so that I can move on with my life. As of now, I cannot see how I can ever learn to live with this pain. Not 1 hour has passed without thoughts of my husband, and many tears have been shed.
Court documents say there was a dispute between Nelson and Cornerstone Security Group over Nelson selling wooden pallets in the weeks leading up to the shooting. Even though he had an agreement with Lowe's to collect and sell the store's unwanted pallets, the security company banned him from the parking lot. On May 29th, Gimbel confronted Nelson and it escalated quickly. Gimbel pepper sprayed Nelson and his wife before opening fire on Nelson with a gun he wasn't allowed to legally carry as a security guard. Gimbel's lawyer claimed he was acting in self-defense, saying Nelson was driving toward Gimbel before he opened fire. But the jury saw otherwise. Earlier this month, they found Gimbel guilty of second-degree murder.
I just want to say to the Nelson family, I'm sorry for the loss that I caused. And I hope that with this, they can find some closure.
Today, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Even though Nelson's family may have gotten justice, his wife wrote, memories of that day will never go away.
This tragic loss of my husband has devastated me in every way. Financially, mentally, physically, and emotionally. I have been forever changed, and I don't know that I will ever be the same again.
Well, Pete and Riel, Gimbel's defense team, says that they're planning on appealing this verdict. And also the judge opened up a 90-day window if the family of Nelson would like to file any restitution against Gimbel. And also there is a civil case against the security company that hired Gimbel, and that's still making its way through the courts. Reporting live in North Portland, Connor McCarthy, Fox 12 Oregon.
Yeah, that is what we end up seeing, and it doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, it is just a series of bad decisions of a security company that doesn't enforce rules, especially with armed security, of letting people work, even though they
I am here to tell you today that your feelings are valid. Your trauma.
Stop. Okay. Yeah, but there's absolutely no reason for that guy to be on the job if he was not licensed to carry for that company. It is the duty ultimately of the company before they post the security personnel to ensure that they are licensed to carry, that they are up to date in training and all of the check all the boxes, cross the T's, dot the I's, and everything. So yeah, he says he's going to appeal this this case. The problem is that when you look into basic self-defense law, it's not basic self-defense because the security guard escalated this situation to begin with. So in other words, it's not self-defense. He pushed it to the, again, he could have just sat back and said, hey, you guys got to leave, you got a trespass order. But now what we find out is even more interesting is, again, so the security company supposedly, or Gimbal at least at a minimum, and the security company didn't want this guy on the property. But then we find out that this guy had an agreement with that Lowe's franchise that he could pick up pallets in the back and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that's why I talk about, even if you hear that somebody has trespassed from a property, you need to check with law enforcement to make sure that that is actually indeed the case, because you can operate off of, well, so-and-so told so-and-so, and they told me, and so it must be true. That's not actually the case. What people say and what actually are can be two entirely different things, as which we see here. So what I see, this guy got 25 years with a possibility of parole. With good time, at least in Colorado, you could do half that time and then be eligible for parole. I'm not sure how it is in Oregon. Usually it can be half up to a third of your sentences off, depending on the state that you live in and the good time that they give, so you don't cause any problems in prison. You can get out in basically half the time. And that doesn't count parole and things like that. Definitely, he'll never have a firearm again. But the fact that there is going to be a civil case is 100% true. You can sue that Cornerstone security company for not properly managing and enforcing the rules for armed security when they, just be a big boy, you're on your own, you know what to do. That shows me a severe lack of professionalism and training and a disdain for law, not only for security guards, but for the general public as well. Excuse me. So anyway, yeah, I posted this information on on the Facebook post that somebody posted who put this video, and pro security guard guy says, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," and basically claimed I didn't have any experience. But at my military experience, at my experience in AMPs, at my experience in law enforcement, in prisons, and working security, working for G4S and working in Pueblo, probably not a real nice place to work, or Colorado Springs for that matter. As if I had never, so 20 years military, 12 years overseas, 11 years in law enforcement, and then during those 11 years, I also did CCW and was contractor to U.S. military, as I stated before. But apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. I actually taught portions of Colorado law in regards to self-defense. And when I went through my security training with G4S Security, I actually got with the instructor afterwards because they weren't teaching the right stuff in accordance with Colorado law. Now, luckily, the instructor was a new instructor, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I had already printed out all the CRS for him, and I said, "Yeah, you need to really update your information because that is totally wrong." And so they incorporated that into the training. It took a long time, but it eventually got incorporated. And again, it just goes to show, being with a security company, even the largest security company in the world, the wheels turn slowly when adding curriculum or corrections to their course material and the certification process for armed or unarmed security guards. So, yeah, you're never supposed to escalate the situation, which I remember sitting through class. Again, classes that I had taught numerous times to military and to law enforcement, working for the state of Colorado, talking about force continuum and how you respond with appropriate levels of force, either the same level or less, to disengage and not escalate the situation. And yeah, I recently had a kid who contacted me and said that I know nothing about security, that I've never done anything crazy in my life, and that my time in the military didn't count for anything. And this guy had, I think, 5 years of working at a hotel resort and a hospital. And that's his only job. But yeah, my 30 some odd years of experience, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. The whole idea of this situation is that the security guard should have just said, you know what, you're not supposed to be here. You got a trespass order, which apparently now that's not true. But even if it was somebody said that there's a trespass, and I take that as gospel truth, the security guard should have just said, there's a trespass order, you're not supposed to be on the property, I'm going to call law enforcement if you don't leave, and then just sit back and say, hey, just to make sure that they don't damage property, don't hurt other people or themselves, and call and wait for law enforcement. There's a reason why they call security guards. The main job is to observe and report. Now, if the situation was that this couple was actively assaulting customers at this client's location, then yes, the security guard can go in there. But again, he has to go in with the appropriate level of force. The fact that this guy was standing in front of the truck, pepper sprayed them first, and then stepped back in front of the truck, not allowing them to leave while yelling and screaming, and then he draws his gun as the guy is obviously feeling the effects of the pepper spray, which only escalated the situation, and he's into this fight or flight type of situation, so he tries to flee. Security guard guy jumps in front of the vehicle, so obviously he stops. Guess what? Security guard shoots 4 or 5 times, kills the guy. That is just a classic example of everything of what not to do as a security guard. So even though the guy seemed like a knucklehead, and he's had past run-in with law enforcement, the guy who got killed for assault, domestic abuse, and some other things, that still does not mean that he is not entitled to safety and security under the law. So just because he was a knucklebag, he was a dirtbag before, in a wackadoo, does not mean that he is denied justice or the laws to keep him and his safe. And again, the security guard did absolutely everything wrong. This would be a whole different situation if the security guard just said, hey, you're supposed to leave, I'm calling law enforcement, it's not me, it's my client doesn't want you here, or based off of whatever information, and just observe and report to make sure that, and if they drove off, that'd be fine as well. Because the security guard would have the evidence on his body cam, never have to draw pepper spray, never have to draw his gun, even if they left the property. He could turn that over to law enforcement, and if indeed they did have a trespass order that they violated, there would be the evidence of the trespass. So it would be another higher misdemeanor, or it would result in a felony, and law enforcement takes it over from there. Again, security guards are a show of force about 95% of the time, okay? There are times where you have to deal with drunks and people that are high and people that are mentally unfit and have mental issues, but that's part of the job. But you need to be the consummate professional. And unfortunately, what I see with my experience in security is that they hire people that are brand new, that don't know how to be professional. They don't know how to check their emotions. They don't know how to do the job and leave their ego at the door. And so I ended up getting remarks from people that work security for, another guy worked security for 2 years, and he said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, Johnny, Mr. Walmart security guy. No experience whatsoever. These people are the worst type of people to have as security guards. But again, security guard companies go for the bottom of the barrel, honestly, unless you're getting into high-end security and, security of VIPs and things like that, bodyguard security and things like that, which is a whole different animal. But when you get a company like this Cornerstone that obviously doesn't enforce its own rules, doesn't ensure that its people are licensed to carry, and so on and so forth, he should have never been on the job until he was able to legally carry a firearm, and that they knew that 100%. So yeah, I fully expect the victims and the family of the victims to sue that security company, and I'd bet a paycheck that they're going to win. It's just so blatantly clear. Gimbel says that they're going to appeal the decision. I don't think that's going to make a difference. And that could actually hurt him in the end if there's an appeal and then new evidence comes up or something else is brought to light that was missed before by maybe the prosecution or the defense or a combination of both. And he could actually even get a higher sentence than the 25 years with possibility of parole. It could end up that he gets 25 years with no possibility of parole. So again, that's a roll of the dice, and he put himself in that situation, so he's going to have to deal with that. So anyway, that was 100% a bad shoot. That is an example of how to escalate a situation into something that was terrible and ended somebody's life by someone who wasn't licensed to carry, by a security company that didn't care about enforcing the rules and thus didn't care about the safety of the public as a whole, or their client safety as well. Because now there can also be a civil suit filed not only against a security company, but against Lowe's and that franchise owner, or Lowe's as corporate, of hiring a security company that didn't enforce the standards. So this could be tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions. It just depends on how far that this goes. So anyway, but I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have any experience. If it was me as that security guard, hey, you're not supposed to be here, you're supposed to leave, blah, 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 for whatever reason. I'm sorry, it's not me. I'm going to call law enforcement if you don't leave the property because I'm under the impression that you're under a trespass order. So I'm going to call law enforcement. We'll deal with this. Again, it's not anything personal. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to understand is how you can be professional and not take things personally. And working in law enforcement, working in military, working, overseas, working in prisons, you get tested in that. And unfortunately, the majority of young people that are hired as security don't have any experience of this, and they will fly off the handle. And it's not just young people. I worked with a guy who was older than me that was unhinged, and he didn't have any common sense either, because he didn't have any experience in it. So again, it's not an age thing, but it's an experience thing, and there are some things that you just can't teach people, and there are some things that people just won't learn because they're not mature, civil, and their mentality is not suited to be security. So, but that doesn't stop the security fanboys who, work at these little places and get to wear the badge and the drop gun holsters, as they tour the parking lots of the Piggly Wiggly and Walmarts and things like that, thinking that they're all that in a bag of chips just because they have the word security on their uniform. Most of those people, the majority of the people who work those security jobs, it's a show of force only. And there's people where it's like, I was sitting in class and people asking questions and seeing their demeanor and talking to people during training and saying, hey, these guys, you got to watch out for these people. And 2 of the 3 people that I went to class with ended up getting fired because they did stupid. And I told the instructor, I said, hey, you need to watch out for these 3 guys. They're bad news. And 2 of them got fired. The other one was pretty close. And then I quit and retired. So I don't know what happened to the 3rd guy. But I did know that my supervisor, who was an idiot, that he ended up getting fired for preferential treatment and, going against the rules and some other bad stuff as well. So, and this is G4S security. So, it's just not, it's absolutely crazy. When you get in, if you thought the military was bad, go into security. And you will find out that the U.S. military is infinitely better when it comes to training and the enforcement of standards, for self-defense and so on and so forth. It is just light years ahead of what I've seen in the world of security. So anyway, that's what we got going on. I wanted to comment on that. And fun stuff. So put your 2 cents in the comments down below and we'll see what it pans out. But if you say that I don't have any experience or my experience in military, law enforcement, prison, security, and as a CCW firearms instructor, as combatives instructor, and Krav Maga, and so that means nothing, I don't know what to tell you. You're a legend in your own mind and just go do your Piggly Wiggly Walmart security job and you're all that in a bag of chips. Peace.